I'm Mark Bridge. Welcome to this week's feature from thephonecast.com. In today's podcast, I'm joined by a familiar voice from a company that's probably not quite so familiar to many people. James Rosewell has been with the Phonecast since we started 5 years ago, and he's also founder and managing director of technology business 51Degrees.mobi. That's a company you'll be hearing a lot more about over the next few weeks, and not just because it's our new sponsor. In fact, today, Monday the 5th of December, is a particularly big day for 51Degrees.mobi. So, to explain more, I'm joined on the line by James from his office in Reading. James, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, listeners.
Morning. Now, first question, I guess the obvious one. In a nutshell, what is 51 Degrees?
Well, 51 Degrees was set up several years ago to help developers create mobile websites and web applications for mobile devices.
So you're providing software tools for them, effectively?
That's right. We provide a set of tools, both open source and free, and paid for commercial ones, together with expert support, to help developers create mobile websites and web applications.
And what's the big news today?
Well, Mark, the big news today is that we've released our own first version of a mobile device database. This is a database that sits on a web server, and it allows the web server to understand the characteristics of the device and the browser and the software on that device that's actually accessing the website. What that allows businesses to do is determine if a mobile device is accessing the website and choose to redirect that device to a specific landing page or set of pages that are optimized for the mobile.
And how specific can this detection be? Is it just a question of saying, is it a mobile phone, yes or no?
At a very high level, if that's the kind of view of the world you want to have, then you can do that. But if you want to go down and look at screen size, input method, data connections, all that kind of stuff, we can make available if you wanted to. You could have different microsites for different types of mobile phones. So you might have a look and feel that's consistent with Apple, or a look and feel that's consistent with BlackBerry. If you wanted to go down that particular route, very much the sky's the limit as far as the developer's concerned. We're just providing the tools and the intelligence so that developers and businesses can make these decisions efficiently.
And this database of yours, how big is it? How many devices do you have in it?
Well, it's an interesting way of measuring things, isn't it? There are about 5,000 devices out there that we have in this database. But if you actually look at the combination of devices as in terms of physical hardware, software platforms, the operating systems that the devices are running, and then the browser that those devices are running, it actually increases significantly. So we don't just look at devices, we also look at the number of browsers and the number of software platforms that are out there as well.
And how does that compare with, let's say, other companies doing the same thing? How does that compare with the number of mobile phones that are out there at the moment?
Well, we've been able to start this project of creating this database from scratch. Now, back in 2000, beginning of the last decade, this separation of operating systems, browsers, and physical hardware wasn't really present. I mean, how many people even knew what Nokia Series was, or Symbian, etc.? It wasn't really something that's relevant. Whereas now we're in this situation where we have browsers for different phones. We've got the Kindle browser, Firefox browser, Skyfire browser, loads of them. We've got different operating systems now that people know about, particularly Android, of course, which is probably the most front of mind for people in the mobile industry. And you pair all these things up with the different hardware devices and the fact that you can actually change the operating system. It gets upgraded, particularly in the case of Android, or you can have multiple browsers running on the same handset. It kind of just gets exponentially larger. And we manage all that because we've started by looking at an approach from saying, well, where is the industry today? Not where was the industry 10 years ago.
You say you built your database from scratch. How do you do that?
Well, we've been, as I said earlier, operating for a couple of years, and we've built up a great deal of intelligence about the devices that are out there on the internet. So to start with, we've looked at what are the devices that are popular over the last couple of years. And therefore, our database has been very much focused on, what's out there now, what's out there active. We're not particularly interested in devices that were perhaps manufactured in 2002 and haven't been seen live on the internet for the last couple of years. So our database is very much focused on, where we are today as an industry, and we're not particularly worried about what happened 10 years ago and devices that either just aren't there anymore, or even, in fact, devices that are can't even connect to the internet now because the network that they were designed to connect to has been shut down.
So if I'm a developer out there, a web developer, perhaps someone who's specifically a mobile web developer, and I want to get hold of this database, I want to use your software, how do I do it?
Well, there are two flavors of the database. The first is free. It's licensed under the Mozilla public license. This is a highly permissive public license. It means that there are very few restrictions on what the developer and business can do with the data, and that can be downloaded from our website, which is 51Degrees.mobi. Follow the links on the homepage in order to download the free light data. That will tell developers information such as is the device a mobile one and the screen size in pixels. Those are based on our research and the information we're getting back from hundreds of developers, the key properties that developers are interested in.
You mentioned the free one. I guess that means there's a chargeable version as well.
Yep, the business model here is the classic freemium model. So the light data that I talked about earlier is a great entry-level product, as I say, free, no restrictions. Take it, do what you want with it, as long as you adhere to the Mozilla public license. The premium product contains a lot more information about the device. So we're looking at not just screen size in pixels, but screen size in millimeters. We're looking at the different input methods that the device supports, the data bearers, information about the browser, the software platform that the device is actually running on. So there's a lot richer information. It's also updated on a weekly basis, and there's an option to automatically update the web server. And that's charged on a per instance, per annum basis. And the starting price is $360.
What kind of people are using the service at the moment, James?
Well, we've been providing services for a couple of years. So we have a large number of particularly high-profile global brands that are using the service that we've been providing in the version 1 format for well over a couple of years, and it's everything from mobile banking, detecting that it's a mobile device coming onto your mobile banking platform and therefore you need to display a different user interface. We've had organizations use it for competitions. If you think of fast food restaurants where they have these little tokens that are on the bottom of the cups and things like that, you enter your voucher and you determine whether you win a free burger or something like that. Deploying the system for actually redeeming those vouchers, determining whether you've won, and then redeeming the voucher, deploying that onto the mobile device. And those are just two of many, many usage scenarios. One I particularly like, and we have hundreds of these, is the small businesses. Our products have been very accessible to the small businesses, and there's one I quite like, which is a crazy golf course in Florida, that as you drive along the highway, they've got a big billboard at the side of the road, and they're just saying, come to this website on your mobile phone, find out when we're open, how much we cost, have a look at the course, all the kind of thing that you can't really put on a billboard at the side of the road, but you want to get into people's hands. And there's just tens of thousands of businesses out there using our products in those ways.
That's a pretty big number. Are there any other figures you can share with us, James?
Well, Mark, there is a particularly big number that we are very proud of, and that's 110 million. That's the number of devices that went through our system in October that we know about. That's from organisations that voluntarily send us information about the devices that go through their websites.
That certainly is very impressive, James. Taking a step back now from your business specifically, what would you say the key things that people should look at when they're looking to get some kind of mobile detection solution for their mobile website?
Well, I think the first place to start is the design and the user experience that you're looking to create. If your website is very, very simple and the desktop website is very, very simple, then there's clearly a lot of alignment between what happens on the traditional desktop and what happens on the mobile phone. In that situation, you may be able to have one website that uses technologies like HTML5 and CSS3 in order to provide your service across every single platform. However, that is the exception as opposed to the norm, and most organizations have a particularly heavy investment already within their traditional website. They don't necessarily want to try and adapt that to work on all devices using a single website, and therefore using our technologies, they can create multiple microsites, perhaps one for tablets, one for handheld mobile devices, and maybe even then extend that to support, say, ebook readers in the future. I think we're going to see a lot more web activity coming through that route. Televisions, we have all the major consoles within our database, and there's going to be more and more IPTV access coming out there for the internet. And all of those have slightly different use cases when it comes to the way that the customer's interacting. And if you want to make the most of that, you need to know what device you're actually displaying your website on.
That's certainly a compelling reason to use mobile device detection. Why should people come to you? As you've said, your database is fresh. It's got a focus not just on devices but also on browsers. Why else, though, should somebody choose 51Degrees.mobi?
We're one of the very few providers of this sort of solution that doesn't require the use of a cloud service. The amount of data that we're talking about is actually relatively small in the grand scheme of things. If you compare, say, to Google Maps or geolocation services where there are terabytes and terabytes of information, the actual database size when it's compressed and deployed to customers is under a couple of megabytes. So it would comfortably fit on a couple of floppy disks if you wanted it to. So there really is no need to use a cloud service for this kind of problem, to solve this kind of problem. And we're one of the very few companies that provides a solution that actually runs on the existing hardware and the existing system that you already have without introducing the problems associated with a cloud service. Our system will have detected the device before the packet has even left your LAN on the way to the cloud service. So the performance is good, the architecture is straightforward and easy to understand, and then importantly, we've packaged it commercially, so it's very, very easy for people to understand. It's $360 per instance. You get some discounts as you increase in volume, and it's very price competitive compared to the other solutions that are out there, including cloud services.
It's a big day for the company today, James, as we've already said. Why, though, have you waited until now to sponsor the Phonecast?
Well, we've been working on the Phonecast, as I think you said earlier, for 5 years together with Ian, and we've had various sponsors over the years that have enjoyed a lot of success. And really, it's now that we're in a position as 51 Degrees to want to talk about what 51 Degrees do, not just to the developers who use Microsoft technologies, which is really where we've been in the past. We want to talk to the whole industry. We want to talk to the developers, the IT managers, the business directors, the C grades, etc. And the Phonecast is just a fantastic way of reaching that audience. So it just made absolute perfect sense to do it at this time. I'm sure others will follow.
I'm sure you're right, James. On the subject of that wide range of people, if they want to know more about 51 Degrees, where should they look?
Well, the clue's in the name. It's 51Degrees.mobi. You just type 51Degrees.mobi into your address bar on your browser, and you'll be taken to our website where you can find out about not just device data, which we've talked about extensively here, but also the tools that we have to optimize the web experience, and also our mobile analytics product, which tells you what's happening by country and by manufacturer, and the different models and the percentage penetration they're actually having on the internet in real terms, not just the sales volumes, but what's actually happening on the internet. So not just through the mobile networks, but also through the other data bearers that are out there now. So it gives you a very good view of what's really going on.
And finally, perhaps a question that's been bugging some people since the start of this conversation. What does the name mean? Why 51Degrees.mobi?
We wanted to achieve two things. We wanted a name that people will remember. 51Degrees.mobi is easy to say. Hopefully when you hear it, you'll also be able to type it into a browser, as opposed to some of these more abstract sort of 5-letter names that can be a little bit difficult to work out how to spell. So we wanted a name that would be remembered. We hope 51 Degrees will achieve that. And where it came from is it's the northern latitude of London and Reading, which is where most of us and our staff are based.
That makes perfect sense when you put it that way, James.
Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure to be interviewed by you and be on the other end of the telephone call. I've always enjoyed both contributing to the podcast and listening to the features, and I'm absolutely delighted that 51 Degrees has now been the subject of a Phonecast feature. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to James Rosewell of 51Degrees.mobi. This programme has been produced by the Phonecast. To listen online or to download each broadcast automatically, head for our website, thefonecast.com, where you'll discover an RSS feed, an iTunes link, and a built-in audio player. If you're using a mobile phone, you'll find our mobile website at the same address. It'll automatically identify the handset you're using and will tailor the information to fit the screen. We also produce regular news updates in a separate podcast every Wednesday morning. You'll find it on our website, on the mobile news website at mobilenewscwp.co.uk, and on the Independent Mobile Phone Dealers Association site at impda.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back with our regular programme on Wednesday.